Good morning once again. Let's start our session today, which is the business activity, problems, our issues and growth drivers. Today we're going to talk about a national project on how to promote entrepreneurship in this country and to see the hotspots as well as any wish of the Russian people to be engaged in entrepreneurship, what has been done in Russian regions. Allow me to introduce our participants. I am Alexey Grishenko. I am Deputy Director of Delovaya Sreda Laboratory of Innovations. I'm going to be the moderator of today's session and will help our participants. Milena Arslanova, Director of Investment Policy Department, as well as Entrepreneurship Development of the Ministry for Economic Development of Russia. Vladislav Korochkin, First Vice President of the All-Russian Civil Organization for Smaller and Medium Enterprises, Opora России. Alexander Isayevich, Deputy Director of Entrepreneurial Department and Innovative Development of City of Moscow. Artur Yusupov, General Director of SME Development Fund of Chelyabinsk region. Vadim Lobov, Deputy Director of Synergia Company, and Venemin Simonov, Director of Department for Analysis, Research and Oversight of Central Bank of Russia, as well as Guzel Imaeva, General Director of the National Agency for Financial Studies. And I would like to start our session with Guzel. I know that your agency has been doing a lot of research in various industries, and you have established a big research on what is the attitude of Russians to entrepreneurship, and another big research is going on. So could you share with us the results of such surveys? And another thing which is common for everyone, we have 90 minutes, so let's fit into 7 minutes timing for us to have enough time for Q&A session and an open discussion. So Guzel, the floor is yours. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Alexei. Today I would like to share with you our research experience. Under the federal project on promotion of entrepreneurship, a big deal or a large-scale work has been launched. To know what is going on, we have to measure, and we stick to that philosophy. Can we have my presentation on the screen? I would like to share with you the results of our basic research. So we wanted to know, is there any desire among Russians to be entrepreneurs? Today we can say that over the recent 10 years, there has been a big transformation on business perception among the people. 10 years ago, they were saying that entrepreneurship is about criminality, about muddy waters of the 90s, but today the picture has changed completely. Today that perception is pretty positive. An entrepreneur is just described as a person who bears responsibility and takes risks, and so on. Following the all-Russian representative research, we can see that 74% of Russians have a positive attitude to entrepreneurship, and this is a big thing, a good thing. We have something to work with. Speaking about the cons, well, it is on the elder people side who have lived their life and who has seen a lot, and so they have a negative attitude toward business and entrepreneurs. Not so many figures for you today, but there is a big difference. There is a generation gap in terms of attitude to entrepreneurship. If young people today see business as something idealistic, it's about high income, independence, success. Older people are more critical and skeptical about that. And that gives us, an idea what messages should we address a certain audience. For older generation, to start your own business is not about independence. It's more about a new stage in your life. For younger generation, it is different. To wake you up in the morning, I want to play with you interactively, because it's not just facts and figures. There's some deep research also available on our side, as well as qualitative methodologies to know what are the motivators that drive people. Take a look at this tree. This is a projectable method. There are various little men on that window, and you can see a number. What do you think? What little men describe Russian business? Just what do you think? Which number refers to the current Russian entrepreneur? It's a good question, because we need to scan all those 21 little men, but I would say it's number 20, but probably not. I would say our goal is to make it number 20. I think that it's number 3, and I hope that number 2 is also our state. Number 3 is an entrepreneur. Number 2 is a state. Veniamin, what do you think? It's a hard one. Let us decide who is an entrepreneur. If we mean a major entrepreneur, he's not on that tree. It's more about smaller and medium enterprises. As far as SME are concerned, we are trying to be number 2, but number 9 resembles the reality more, but it is missing. But there is a loop missing on that rope. You're pretty pessimistic about that. All right, thanks. Alexander, I think that the tree is a state or a region that should support entrepreneurs, and from 1 to 21 is a life cycle of an entrepreneur that we can see today. He starts from number 1 and goes up to 21. As far as 4 and 5 are, well, the situations when we can see when the company dies or cannot find itself in the SME register. So I would say that it's just the life cycle of entrepreneurship. Vladislav, what do you think? Where can you spot a Russian entrepreneur here? Classically number 10, and God forbid for him to turn into number 14. Number 14 has a long time to fly. Vadim, what is your opinion? Number 20. Those who are left there have a strong position. The rest have been left behind. Artur, I want the state and entrepreneurs to be number 11 and number 12. Everybody wants that. Thank you. Guzel, what is the real thing? It's 3, 6, 7, and 10, according to the Russian people. So they see an entrepreneur as a person climbing up, overcoming barriers. So this is the attitude of the Russian people to the real case. It's not easy to be an entrepreneur, so thank you for your comments. Let's continue. Our task was to evaluate the potential requests for entrepreneurship for people from 18 to 60 years of age. And the figure is 29%. So 29% of the people want or consider this opportunity. So it's about 25 million people. It's a good figure, but we need good messages, good communication channels with those people, and certain state support programs to maintain that wish and drive. It does not mean that they turn into entrepreneurs overnight, but they have this desire. It won't work. Well, it works now. The profile is interesting. This core of our demand for business, it's mainly men, young people up to 25 years of age. Every second one wants to be in the business. So it's where the energy concentrated. People with higher skills, higher education are also more about entrepreneurship and the urban population more than village people. What is the motivator? There's three pillars. First and foremost is higher income. Independence, number two, and self-realization is number three, to do what you want to do. So those are the motivators, and we can see that there are no pink glasses. People know that it's pretty hard to get an entrepreneur, and they say about barriers. What is the biggest obstacle today? The financial issue and lack of just starting capital. Then comes the risk that an entrepreneur should assume and lack of knowledge. This lack of knowledge is a standalone one. We went deeper into that to see what skills are missing for the people to take this more serious step. It's all about financial literacy, legal knowledge, as well as marketing, HR, teamwork. No one has mentioned digitalization. However, some surveys show that not all entrepreneurs know what is digitalization, and there is a business digitalization index 36 points out of 100. So people don't think much about that. This is a separate thing that has to be integrated in virtually all issues stated here. And what else? If I have 2 more minutes, Alexei, what was how they describe an entrepreneur? There is an information gap, because they said Elon Musk and Oleg Tinkov, because today there are no just high-profile cases or ambassadors in this regard to be discussed heavily in the society, so it's a big deal of work to do. Back to the knowledge. An important thing of our research, together with Delovaya Sreda, showed that people today are ready to study, but they need practices. They need practical people. They want to learn from practical entrepreneurs. So not always they need success stories. People are a little bit sick and tired of those success stories. They want to see failure stories, maybe, because it can also be interesting. And to conclude, I would say that the work has been underway under the federal project, and there are two lines of activities. First is the basic measurement of people's attitude to entrepreneurship, not just across the entire people, but for target groups. We have just finished the so-called 8 vulnerable categories of people: servicemen in the military, those who retire at a young age, at a certain young age, and they need to work further, people with disabilities who encounter issues for employment, and that could also be a strategy for a business, maternity moms, pre-retirement age people. So it's about 8 target groups that we are studying deeper, so we will give you the results later. Because to involve a general public into entrepreneurship is a way to economically deliver yourself. And then comes recommendations for a correction campaign or update campaign, and there is an effectiveness measurement project starts in September. So we will see how we look like in terms of dynamics. Thanks for your attention. I hope that was useful for you. Thank you, Guzel. I have a question. Are there any entrepreneurs in the auditorium? Please raise your hand. We do have some. Are there any public sector people helping entrepreneurs to develop? Or a few? Who are public servants not related to entrepreneurs? And business or commercial people? Not clear. All right. It's too expensive to pay a fee for that form. All right. There will be a Q&A session in the end, so you can ask your question and introduce yourself in the end. Let's move on. Vladislav, the question for you. You represent a major civil organization, Опора России, that unites entrepreneurs. What do you think? What has to be promoted for entrepreneurs to grow in number? Well, colleagues, if we get back to the title of our session, and if we answer the question which is asked by that title, we can say that most people today do know that the obstacles for that national project they lie beyond that project. In terms of promotion, it's a clear figure of how many grandfathers, mothers, students, school children, or disabled people have to become entrepreneurs who have not yet there. We believe there is a little thing missing there. In 2011, there was a survey, Small and Medium Enterprises 2040, and the conclusions were a little bit unexpected. By year 2040, about 20% of Russian economy will be SMEs, 30% will be about new types of business, and the rest could probably be migrants' business. And the idea to develop a sound migration policy owing to the demographic processes that are taking place now, this thing is missing in the national project. The second problem that lies beyond the national project is depopularization of business and promotion of other areas where you can make billions without indulging yourself into entrepreneurship. It's a word of mouth that how much you can get paid at a restaurant, at a shop, or at how much does a tax officer get, or a fiscal controller, or a law enforcement officer. So, it's just like a red carpet for people. They don't want to be entrepreneurs because of those fiscal issues. But our today's topic is how to improve the national project and what can be done and suggested, and how to promote those things for people who want to be entrepreneurs, to be more in number, for people not to be afraid of being an entrepreneur. First, the Russian SME is not about high birth rate, but high mortality rate. So we would suggest that the major target for that project is not the number of newly established SMEs, but the survival rate of SMEs up to 3 to 6 years. That would cut off one-day companies and those that would increase the effectiveness of measurement of the national project. So the survivability parameter should be the most important. On the other side, there are many figures on that national project, and there are questions behind those figures. For instance, if you want to grow the number of employed people or self-employed by 30% in 5 years' time, the SME share is going to grow by 45%. But the point is those figures don't match. But this is not the most important thing. A good thing is that the figures are there, at least. The problem is not how to achieve certain metrics. The problem is to set up a quality business environment which would evolutionize by itself and would grow those figures naturally. So the proposal on my slides could seem, debatable, but still we have to discuss them. Many forgot that SME features are highly personified, highly, specific personal nature of business. An individual entrepreneur without employees and separation of individual entrepreneurs from limited liability companies makes no sense. So we think that we have to make individual entrepreneurs with employees as well as farmers or farming enterprises. They have to be made equal, and we have to call them all micro businesses to give them transparent and simple rules. The next point. Sometimes there is a question, why does our country need entrepreneurs? It's an obvious question or obvious answer: to make goods and services. But this is not a full answer with regard to SME. We could say that SME is not a growth tool, not experts growing tool or tax base. This is a tool to grow income of people, personal consumption. And at the same time, we know that small or medium enterprises, they don't go offshore. Whatever they earn, it's not just what they get paid as salary. They keep their income on the ground. So let's give them their income for the sake of national economy. It would multiply and get back into the budget as direct or indirect taxes. Labor relations in SME is private relations. A typical entrepreneur knows his, counterparts, and he meets them several times a day. But neither employer nor tax authorities take account of that thing. So we need to simplify labor relations. There should be a separate section in the labor code to allow micro SMEs to employ self-employed people and not act as a tax agent. In the coming 10 years, about 20 million people are going to lose their jobs because of the economic development. So let them get a chance to be absorbed by smaller businesses.
The next point is very important to my point of view. Is establishment of quality business environment, which the people will be willing to be engaged in. Usually in the countries, it's a very common situation when on the second floor it's a house and on the first floor it's a restaurant providing services to the neighborhood. Except in all the countries except Russia. In order to provide this opportunity in Russia, we need to do a lot. Usually, they are resource and finance intensive. The very first directive was called on the free trade. We probably need a new law on liberty of entrepreneurship, using your own resources, finance for opening your small business the way you like to do it, without additional risks, without additional capital investment. And the people who should be impediments should be neighbors, not the government structures. In this case, older people who have their own houses will have an opportunity to establish their own businesses. And the second step is to make it more simple, to simplify. Everything should be done by this business itself and very quickly, no more than half an hour. Usually today the entrepreneur has to do accounts, reports. It takes a lot of time, and usually the reports are not on obligatory requirements, but on how the entrepreneur follows these requirements. And the next important point is, of course, today the majority of added value, all the added value, to be quite honest, for SME is spent mainly on taxes, salaries, and payments to banks. A huge share of entrepreneurs are ready to close their businesses at the first opportunity. They are balancing, as you said, the man number 10 on this tree. And income for them doesn't make any sense, because in income, the revenue goes to banks, monopolies, controlling bodies, network retails, consultants, and lawyers. When we say that small business doesn't want to pay taxes, it's not true. Not to avoid paying taxes is something that large-scale business wants, and usually this business manages to do that. That is why when we talk about self-employed, we don't want to. We just need to remove everything that creates this shadow, all the risks, all the fear that the SME having self-employees said will pass away. Number two, the taxation burden is not only money for small business. In the majority of cases, it's necessity of reporting to pay an accountant and to cooperate with different governmental structures. An accountant is not necessary for SME usually. It's only required to reduce the risks. What is required in this regard? Promotion and expanding of patent system. If we have a patent system with a guarantee from the government that all the claims will be limited if you purchase a patent, and nobody will interfere in your business, and let's see what happens. Probably it's not about promotion, but I would like to mention one thing. Small business and somebody else's money. Philosophy of loaning and providing loans to small business, to my point of view, in our country is not correct, because the management takes all the large loans, according to Calvin Galbraith. People who work with somebody else's money, the portfolios are not clear, the responsibilities are absolutely not clear. They take the loan, and somebody is responsible for that, a concrete person with any preferences, with any conditions. We understand that it's an offer to work for somebody else instead of working for yourself, instead of being self-employed. You have to give the majority of your income to the bank, which, in a perspective, in the future, should become an infrastructure, and no more than that. We need a completely different investment model. Let's promote that ideas, and the national project will be successful. Thank you very much for your opportunity, for your opinion of Опора России. We know that the Accounts Chamber has its own position on how the national projects are being implemented. Veniamin. What is accounts chamber opinion on entrepreneurship activity? Where do you see the growth drivers and where do you see problems? We have a very narrow opinion, very narrow position, because we consider not whole small business as a whole, but only its part which is related to the governmental financial activities on support of this business. But of course we have some ideas, thanks to inspections, thanks to controlling events that we organize. And the first problem which we face is probably methodological problem. Me personally, I cannot understand the tasks set by the government when they support small business. What is the function of small business? It was a very good, I agree with the previous speaker that we need to develop this business. I remember that since 2002, almost annually, we change the drivers. It was banking system with transition mechanism, which was responsible for the growth of economy, then transport, then infrastructure. Now this role belongs to small business. But is this small business capable to perform this task? In international practices, to a certain extent, to a major extent, it's a function of large-scale private economy. United States, for example, monopolization of the agriculture from 55 to 85%. Four largest companies in different segments of the agricultural market have the certain share. What the small business does there? It's a support of the large scale, because large scale business provides demand. We are trying to do the same, but not on the private, but on the state base. Which is the policy, the normatives of purchase from the small businesses. I monitor state corporations. Of course, we control them. There are normative, there are regulations, but nobody respects, nobody follows these regulations. But if they do, it happens that rockets do not fly. We cannot provide necessary quality, and the key factor of the support of small business means that we form state model, supporting it with the budget financing. And this support is not always quantified, is not always reasonably considered. And the key point is that we do not see the target setting of this state support. And I'm an expert in this sphere. We provide claims to the ministry and the assembly, and in this sphere it's an expert opinion to a certain extent. Budget financing are not supposed by the state order, which are not aimed at the stable geographic. It doesn't matter which region is that, it doesn't matter which area we form. It doesn't matter which area we support by the means of small business. About 480 yards on the programs of SME years 2020-2024 are aimed at the support of SME. 54% will be allocated for lending organizations, lending institutions, which means that these institutions will have to take part in formation of small and medium-sized businesses. 23% are the subject for services, expert support, and other spheres. Industry specifications which are not always clear in this money. 80% for support of farmers, dairy, etc. And the rest for the campaigns of promotion. We know that promotion is in the very initial stage. We have a lot of money, and the logic allocation is not clearly determined to our point of view. And there are a number of problems which demonstrate that the problems are also related with efficiency of the achieving of targets, not only beyond the national project, as it was said within the project, there are certain reserves, there are certain problems which are probably will be determined by us together with the ministry, and we will have to work together to join our efforts on elimination of these impediments. We understand that state support of small business grows 68 yards. I said more than 480 billions, and the budget provides 87% of the financial support, and we do not have all the information on monitoring and control, because support is provided through different systems: Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Industry and Trade, Ministry of Economic Development, Cooperation, banks, and nobody sees consolidated information. This is what I mean when I see that we have difficulties with this consolidated information. We need to analyze this information, and we need to divide it by the areas, by the industries. And so far, I cannot say that we are successful in that. There are problems in management system because the money is provided to persons, to institutions, to lending institutions, to corporations, which are not responsible for achieving the goals of the national projects. And the top officers, top managers of these corporations do not receive these funds, and they do not have any impact on their allocation. Probably there is another problem. So we should develop a problem of strategic planning. We do not have connection between the indicators and target indicators of the national projects. Should they be there? We shall determine it's yes or no. Development strategy after the law number 204 was not amended. Roadmap was not adopted. Probably we shall deal with all the documents. National programs related with big business are not integrated in state programs. Everything is separated. A number, the major target indicators: share of SME in the GDP of the country and number of employed. It's not obvious, it's not clear. We say that something grows or something is reduced. We can say it in a year after the financial year is over. Probably we should do it faster. We shall accelerate that process. We have an access to the base of the tax institutions, and we can see that in SME sector we had 19 million of people last year, and this year only 18. So we have a certain reduction. Probably there were a lot of factors which we have already mentioned. And the specifics nowadays is that every small and medium business lives every day as the last day. I have my friends representing medium business where they have been involved in for more than 20 years, and every conversation starts with the phrase that, yes, everything was fine, but this year probably will be the last year. It's impossible to work here for more than 30 years because in this case we will need other specialists, like psychologists, for example. There are certain difficulties with the tasks set by the president. The number was 6.5. We cannot achieve this figure. And the order 1764, the number is 8.5. And small business does not strive to have these loans. And these subsidies were provided by a number of only 1.1% of the planned one. And the planned number was 1 trillion rubles. Probably the conditions of these loans are not very attractive for small business. We all understand that lack of financing, initial capital, and other factors have very serious impact, but people do not take these loans, which means something is wrong. And the control events demonstrate the necessity of regulation, including the legal regulation. Otherwise, efficiency of the support and targets will not be achieved soon. In a number of cases, subsidies do not have an impact on the major indicators. The enterprises, the SMEs with maximum subsidies do not show the maximum efficiency of their production. Subsidies are used for purchasing of objects which are not included in the target list. Sometimes people purchase equipment and then they are addressed to the state corporations, which usually receive the budget funds and then spend them in banks. People in SMEs buy purchase equipment and give it for rent without developing their business or just reselling this equipment with certain income. There are also some criminal cases which are possible. One example which proves this, that these practices that we have nowadays does not provide for serious limitations on the way of such activities. Everything that I am talking about is within the normative regulations. But we just throw the money, we just waste the money. The company, one person employed, initial capital 10,000 rubles, receives subsidy of 1 billion as a guaranteed preferable loan. And this person comes and says, I didn't sign a loan agreement. I didn't receive this money. I have no idea where this money were allocated. And there was a fraud with the electronic signature. And of course, it's the criminal case with the investigation. If we didn't learn about that, this 1 billion ruble would probably be invested in something not related with the target, not related with the development of business. And here we are an internal organization. Our task probably is to show the ministry some bottlenecks which probably would help to form the new legislative basis, or some state support system will be changed, will be amended, because to our point of view, to a certain extent, state support is far from the system condition, from the necessary condition. Thank you, Veniamin. It's a very important view from the side of the accounts chamber. You have mentioned, you have listed a number of problems. Yes, our section names problems and growth drivers starting from system. We do not understand the function of this small and medium business. We do not see the industry priorities. We will discuss all that. It's very good that we have representatives of the state corporations which work with entrepreneurs directly, both in Moscow and in the city of Chelyabinsk. We will ask them how do they see the target setting and what impact it has on the economy of the region. And I would like to give the floor to the next speaker and ask about the results of implementation of the national project. I know that the project implementation started recently and everybody says that it's only in the initial phase. What's happening at the moment? Thank you very much. Many interesting comments by the previous speakers, and I would like to focus on the results and to give my comments on the previous speeches. A national project was developed on the base of the President's Decree number 204, where the SME was declared a priority. It's not a secret for everybody that small business has a very certain role in economy, the flexible resource for growth. It's adaptable. It's a source of progress. And the countries where small business has a large share are more stable in case of crisis. That's why the priority of SME development is undoubtable. It's great that this issue is paid attention by the president, by the government. And it's great to have a special national project. The KPIs set in the decree are of a very top level. During development, together with our colleagues, we had many consultations with experts, business unions within the
Headed by the representative of the Russian Industry of Commerce and Industry. We know that the national project design cannot just fit whatever relates to the regulatory framework as well as future strategic vision of smaller and medium enterprises development. So there was a certain perimeter outlined, and the regions have been very active in that, and we have taken into account the recommended practice, including that of the Accounts Chamber. So the support measure concept has been changed significantly, just from giving away subsidies. That was the case before, and it was a source of counterfeit, but we switched to another approach. We made a service or an advisory service, or we subsidize like an exhibition participation fee abroad. The financial issue is one of the most important in SME development, and we have dedicated the entire federal project for that. There is a multi-channel system for supporting measures to smaller and medium enterprises, starting from loans on good conditions, microfinancial support, system of guarantees, and this year we have launched securities subsidy scheme. However, some people were very skeptical before that, so they didn't expect a higher demand for that, but the demand is there. The Sverdlovsk region only gave us 2 issuers, and the system is going to be continued to develop next year. There will be a leasing support scheme as well as crowd investing platforms. This is how the funding is described. I think that the Accounts Chamber could process this data in more detail, so it's too early to talk about any conclusions or any just findings for the first stage. However, some facts for you. Today, these are the figures for the year 2024, but these days there are 0.6 million entities of smaller and medium enterprises without employees. About 19 million jobs are taking place today. So we need to know the methodology, because the register that is published on the 10th of August, it takes into account the current number of SME entities. However, the number of their employees are given for the previous year. So it's a mixed one. It takes into account the first 6 months of 2019 and the last 6 months of 2018. So this is a cumulative figure, and we need to know this. Today, this figure does not include the national project fundings or deliverables. You need to know that. It's quite a professional viewpoint. It's a professional knowledge, but you need to know this while providing your estimate to that project. So the share of SME into the national economy is 22% now. However, we get this data 12 months after the reporting period. This is a problem. We're trying to sort this out with the Accounts Chamber. So today the agreement is to develop a special module to calculate that financial metric, to provide it more online. So what is the business feeling? What are the financial results? Regional subsidies for 2018 are by 5 billion rubles less than this year. 700 infrastructure facilities have been established in the regions of Russia, starting from microfinancial organizations, youth centers, engineering centers, expert support centers. It's a wide range of such facilities. And we found out that entrepreneurs were not always aware of support measures in the region, and having studied some regional experience, and the Chelyabinsk Oblast is not an exception, there we found a synergy effect while uniting all infrastructure facilities in one region, in one place, a building, one building or one address. And entrepreneurs, they start learning those support measures faster, and they start using that. So it's not a way to be parasitic on them. It's a way to speed up entrepreneurial activities, and it's an extra opportunity for an entrepreneur to boost his business. So to use this opportunity to promote a my business or my business center in the regions is a good thing. So we're trying to establish those centers in every settlement with more than 100,000 inhabitants. So it's very useful. You have an easier, it's like a one-stop shop for you to use those opportunities. So you can, once you get there, you get an advisory service, and you learn on all those opportunities that you may use, as only 30% of entrepreneurs are aware of those additional support measures. And the procurement volume has increased slightly. So those metrics are pretty ambitious. They are driven by the Russian government and President of Russia. And all those support measures and activities that we're developing under the national project have been heavily debated in the regions and with interpreters. However, the resources are limited. The figure is high, but when we try to spread all those resources across the wish list of entrepreneurs, we're running out of money. As far as the 1764 program is concerned, I have an updated figure, more than 1%. Today it's 106 billion rubles issued as loans under an 8.5% interest rate. When we say that we give this money to credit institutions, it's not quite true, because the beneficiary of the program is an enterprise in the end, because the final interest rate is 8.5%. Today the program is more complex. It takes into account specifics of certain industries more and more. We're now going to change that government regulation. The priority industries before were industrial machinery, agriculture, high-tech industries. This was the case, but now we do know that we cannot ignore commerce. That is more than 50% of smaller and medium enterprises, and it is an entry point for many of them. So we decided to run a test. That industry was not very much supported in recent times, but we want to support the micro commercial or trading facilities. They are the smallest, and it's a big deal for them to compete with bigger retail chains. And Horeca cafes and restaurants were out of that perimeter some time before. We want to support them as well due to tourism development. I don't quite agree with you in terms of the fact that smaller and medium businesses are not going to the banks. I know this question better. There are many things here. Businesses want to be there and they go there. Some don't know about this program, but we try to promote this in the regions. However, there are many issues. First issue is the central bank regulation, not very favorable for credit institutions to provide loans to smaller and medium businesses for that interest rates. If we want to issue more loans, it takes more budgetary funds, so it's a problem that we have to decide. However, the lower is the interest rate from central bank, the better will be the situation. Secondly, there is some competitive lower interest rate loans at the Ministry of Agriculture, so they do this job for us, so we do the same thing, I would say. Third, there are issues in terms of motivating banks, as we have encountered the point that not all bankers offer such loans to their borrowers. We know this, and this is an integrated issue. So I think that this year all our drawbacks will be examined, and the program will be updated next year to simplify access to that program from SMEs. The lack of projects is a chronic issue, as borrowers cannot sometimes formalize their businesses in a good way, but they can be helped in my business centers. We have underestimated the promotion campaign. However, this awareness is going to resolve many things. Firstly, to improve the image of an entrepreneur, we can see the progress, the status and prestige has been growing, but the second point is critically important, which is to give information to the people and to entrepreneurs on opportunities and support that can be provided by the state. Frankly speaking, there are many non-monetary support measures, because money sent to the regions are not about direct money transfer, because those subsidies are only available in single factory cities, because it's the only way to do that, because if the factory is shutting down, people are out with no job, and we have to support them because we have to preserve that economic life in that town or city, and the direct subsidies are there only. We followed the way of microfinancing, guarantees, and lower interest rate loans. However, that does not mean that an entrepreneur should not formalize documents in the right way. The business plan should be there because the bank has to assess risks. However, it is my pleasure to say that the default on obligations is not that high. Our microfinancing system has a very good percentage of defaults, lower than the market. This year, we launched the Business Climate Transformation Project, which is the first set of updates or amendments. That event is listed in the federal project for improvement of entrepreneurial activities. We know that the national project is not possible to list all those things that we're discussing today, because they appear every year, because the regulation is changing, or law enforcement, court practices is changing, so it's not possible to update all those things. But under the business climate transformation, we have addressed it in an integrated way. So we give it all to entrepreneurs to identify all those limits and obstacles and to give them a chance to work with us as a ministry, because we are a coordinating authority in this area, so to identify and to withdraw those limits from the regulations. So now we're in the process of formalizing the second package to be approved in November, and those barriers that the business has been encountering, it's a window of opportunity. And Opora Rossi has this SME team, and we're now trying to defend our package of measures before the Ministry of Finance. So I think that the second package will be interesting in terms of events. On the one side, the national project may not address all issues because it has a certain framework. On the other side, there is a window in the federal project because we know that we can use this window to amend regulatory documents. Little say that the tax reporting may be cancelled for those entities who have registered cash machines. So those simplification measures are there in the bill and have to be and will be delivered. Uh, the patent issue is a debatable thing because it was established at that time when it was not easy to get information about the income of certain entrepreneurs. But now there is an online registers and it's easier to get information. So it's in the air now. We are ready to discuss that issue, but as a ministry, we position ourselves as a transparent authority, so we are ready to study those initiatives and to support when we can. Social entrepreneurship. As you know, there was a law adopted on social entrepreneurship, and we have to adopt all sub-laws now. It's not going to be a big change for the entrepreneur. They will get an official status. However, the ministry has defined that group before. We provided support to them before. And the new cases that would be able to self-identify themselves in a different way and make a separate group in the community. 47 My Business centers have been opened. We continue that work, and we also continue the way to give more access to state procurement or for smaller and medium enterprises. It's 3 trillion rubles now. As far as self-employed are concerned, 195,000 people as of this Monday. However, we have to make 0.2 million this year, but the demand is more than supply, so we expect that we would do more than expected or planned. As far as the promotion is concerned, we study few metrics. The information campaign is gaining momentum. We can make some preliminary results in December. The year of entrepreneurship is going to be the year 2021, but as we know, next year is going to be a year of the memory because of World War II anniversary. So we are going to propose the year of entrepreneurship to be 2021. The integrated program has been developing in the regions. The educational programs are underway between our ministry and Synergy University. So we have conducted stock taking of all applications, about 700, and a couple hundreds have been selected to support using our subsidies. So the ministry has finally come to the moment when all educational curriculum programs have been evaluated and only high-quality ones could get access to state funding. And under the same federal project, trainers are to be trained how well tell to the general public and to entrepreneurs more information. So they have to be skillful ones. And our metrics by 2024 is that 500,000 people have to be trained.
This was briefly the results as of today, and we understand that it's autumn and all our activities will speed up because we have talked about that a lot in the previous 6 months of the year, which were dedicated to organizational issues, adoption of the legislation, regulations, and in the autumn we see the first fruits of our activities. That is why I believe that in December we will probably have more comprehensive results. Thank you, Lena, and the next speaker is Vadim. And you are present here in two roles. On the one side, you are an entrepreneur who definitely was a man number 20 on that figure, on that image with the tree on the top of the tree, very stable. On the other hand, you implement a very large project of promotion of entrepreneurship. You are partner of state institutions. That is why I have two questions to you. We heard that there is negative attitude towards entrepreneurship, and even we were talking about depopularization, and this trend is changing. And there also were ideas that this should not increase growth rate, but decrease mortality rate. What about promotion? Why do we need it? And what's happening at the moment at the track that you are involved in? Thank you, Alexei. We need information campaign to directly support entrepreneurs. This is a most topical issue when we started implementation of this program, and the answer is somewhere on the border between business and psychology. There is a good example. There is an athlete, Habib, who is very famous. We can have different opinions about Habib and MMA, but through his image, through his history, dozens and thousands of young and not young people are getting involved, come to this sport. He's an ambassador who attracts people from the streets to go to the training gym. They fight on the rings, not on the streets, and it's very topical for a number of regions of our countries. And we have mentioned that at the moment we have a task, we have a target to somehow educate such ambassadors, and this is a very good technique. Alexander and other colleagues, we work with them here in Moscow for more than 3 years. We invite them to speak on the events. We invite entrepreneurs, and more than 200,000 entrepreneurs took part in these events. And there are many examples when people who did not have their own businesses were inspired by the presentation of entrepreneur, and they applied these tools. And this is our task, this is our target, to have these ambassadors on the level of the whole country who will promote the idea of your own business. And we have planned, together with the ministry, a large range of programs. We planned 15 forums from the very beginning, but due to the high activity, we have already planned 27 forums, and there will be more than 30 in 30 regions of country. 30 regions of the country will host such forums where entrepreneurs will share their experience. And there is a trend people need to learn from practitioners, from people who actually do that business. And we invite experts who are entrepreneurs. And these workshops, these forums, is only one tool how allowing the ministry to increase, to involve people, a number of people in this activity. And my colleague Milena also mentioned this issue that there are support measures. This loan with preferences with the interest rate of 8.5%. If we ask all the entrepreneurs, would you like to take a loan with such an interest rate, everybody would say yes. Why don't you go and take this loan? And the answer is very simple. Because we do not probably believe it will really work. But it's actual information, and we learned a lot of real cases. Last year we had a debrief, and a girl, she came to the bank and she took this loan. She has a sewing company participating in the exhibition. It's a real case, and this information should be promoted. How can we achieve that? Media, mass media integration, television, a lot of broadcastings, a lot of programs which will tell about different support measures. We also plan to establish a unified portal, which is already established, mybusiness.rf. It's the first edition, it's the first version, but nevertheless it has a lot of information. It was done together with the Delovaya Sreda, and there are many services, online services, where entrepreneurs will have an opportunity to, for example, register as an individual entrepreneur. I recently been to Singapore and I was impressed. 6% of taxation, and that's great because in this country you are really willing to be involved in the business, to be engaged in the business. But in our country, our climate is as well very good. Such countries as Dubai, as the United Arab Emirates, the United States. We have our campus in the Emirates. I believe that the return of payment on every ruble in Russia is higher. Nevertheless, we continue doing that in that country. Why? There are no reasonable answers. It's not just because we did not reload our mentality. On the one hand, we have the existing system of state support, taxation mechanisms, and on the other hand, we somehow believe that something is not very good, we have many problems, but it is not so. It's a mistake. On our own example, we can say that in our country, to be involved in business is more simple. We have many problems, of course. We face these problems every day, but if we compare the problems which we face here, they seem simpler. But of course, I agree with my colleagues about the reserves on which we have to work. And separate block is work in regions. Today, thanks to the Ministry, 85 of the regions were mobilized, they were involved in this program, and they will promote this program on regional levels. All the stories will be distributed to the regions through this system in order to have the unified coverage area. As Milena said, this campaign has just started and it will speed up. We will focus on all the opinions on what else we could do in these national project frames. We will be in contact with all the institutions, with all the experts, using the best mechanisms. In general, the common target is a very large-scale one. We did not have such examples in the past. It will be the largest campaign on promotion of of own business, of small and medium-sized business. Information about the My Business brand, the website, it will be broadcasted through different channels. Our task is that all the acting entrepreneurs have information on how they can develop their business, and new entrepreneurs will appear in December Together with my colleague Alexander, we will organize a final forum in Moscow. It will take place in VTB Arena with the participation of more than 10,000 entrepreneurs. I believe it will be a very interesting discussion. We will have many issues to discuss, and we will witness how these tools will be efficient. What are the results? Thank you very much. And about federal share, what is the experience of Moscow in support of entrepreneurship? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Before I would probably show my presentation, there were many interesting concepts, statistics of the SMEs and a contribution of SME. First, about statistics. Starting speaking about SMEs, we need to understand what SME is. Today in Moscow, we have 718,000 of SME, 12% of the total number of SMEs in Russia. And they generate working places in Russia. Now, statistics, Milena, thank you very much from the point of view of starting of working with the ministry, because we all think that SME depend only on registers. We analyze them only on the basis of registers. If you are in the register, doesn't mean that this SME exists, and the number of SMEs is larger than the list of the register. Could I just comment on that? A couple of months ago, together with the Federal Taxation Service, we identified that more than 5,000 SMEs are not included in the register. It's another topic. We will work on this regulation of this register in order to provide everybody else who is not included in this list to provide an opportunity to be included in the register. Thank you very much. We would like to cooperate with you on this work. You said that 500,000, about 200,000 is in Moscow. We conducted a survey, just called 25%. It actually doesn't matter for them. Are they included in the register or not? Half of them have no information about why this register is so important for us. If the SME says, I do not know if I'm included in this register, which means that this SME doesn't apply the support tools, because an entrepreneur has the right for support in case this entrepreneur is included in the register. And these 590,000 SMEs which are not included, which are not interested in learning if they are included in the register or not, it's a huge issue. The situation is probably even more complicated, because register doesn't mean only state supports. It's a monitoring for controlling of entrepreneurs, which is important for business. And the second part, when we talk about SME, what is SME from the point of view of a region? It's a driver of economy, because if you check the dynamics in the city, the growth of tax income in Moscow to the city budget during this time grew by 47%. And we see the dynamics that every day about 300 companies register as a legal entity or individual entrepreneur. And there is a separate block on self-employed people, and we see positive dynamics, including from the point of view of feedback of those who have already took advantage of this regime. We try to establish a system in this city. If you go back to the survey which took place in the beginning, I would emphasize once again that, to my understanding, it's a life cycle of an entrepreneur on that picture with the tree and the man, one who fall down, one who climbs up. We monitor their mortality rate in the city, and we see that these dynamics reduces by 27% in 3 years. And I would like to briefly tell you about two measures of support, financial and non-financial one. Today, from the point of view of financial support, the department provides a range of subsidies, first of all to the residents of the technoparks for compensation of expenditures on procurement of equipment and infrastructure development. And measure number 2 is also compensatory one to the exporting companies, which is related with the export of goods to foreign markets. And number 3 is when we provide business an opportunity with the promotion of their goods on the Russian and foreign exhibitions, and we compensate up to 700,000 rubles. It's a new tool, it's a new measure adopted 3 weeks ago when we start compensating the franchise, the companies which work on the franchise. It's a new company, working under commercial concession agreement. We also provide incentives, compensation to such companies, financial support, and I would like to have a dialogue with my colleagues because we discuss a lot these micro loans. In our city we have 2 foundations. Number 1 is a department foundation, venture funding of innovation and high-tech industries, and support foundation, which provides support in banks, so an entrepreneur could have a loan. And I would like to ask if it's possible, as a region and as a municipal organization, we have a limitation. We have a limitation of 0.5%, which is a commission which the entrepreneur should pay us for support in number of projects of social support. That is why we would ask you to consider, to take into account this measure to reduce financial burden of an entrepreneur. Probably it should be a 0 compensation from the entrepreneur to the regional organization. How we cooperate, how we work with business. Today, we have more than 15 of service centers for business, where an entrepreneur could be provided with all the information of measures, possibilities in the city about the services for business. It's an offline location where you can come as an individual and you can leave this place as a legal entity. We will fill in documents. We provide support with filling documentation. We have online services for businesses, and every person will be provided with personal manager who will help to find a facility to fill in the declaration, the taxation declaration, and it's absolutely free. It's part of the municipal infrastructure, municipal support measures. This is what we are doing at the moment, and we have plans. And a second, please respect timing. I would focus only on one thing. Everything that you would like to learn about support measures, both financial, non-financial, educational track which takes place in our city, within which the entrepreneurs themselves present information about their experience, different programs. We have more than 90,000 of entrepreneurs who already participated on this track. Our website is also one place providing all the necessary information. It's mbm.mos.ru. Yes, it's a huge job done by Moscow administration. Probably we shall respect timing because the next session is starting soon. My business centers open all over the country, and it's a driver of information company. And the first center, My Business, appeared in the Chelyabinsk region under the name Territoria Business, the territory of business, which was a prototype and which was an information franchise to be replicated in other regions of the country. And here we have the person who was an ideologist, an author of the concept of this idea. Why do the country needs that?
Thank you for this opportunity. May I have your video on the screen? Well, sorry, not enough time for the video. We will watch it later, but let me have my slides on the screen. Indeed, when we got into that reform to set up a center, we have analyzed the business environment, so what institutions were available for the business, and we found out that there are some 10 separately operating entities in our region doing something for SMEs, but an entrepreneur can see it like that. Certain names, acronyms, or sporadic words. So we were among the first in Russia to make the so-called territory of business facility. To cut it short, it's like we're like Yandex in the business environment. So it's like you go on the browser. If you want to know an answer, you just type in your letters in the browser line and you get an answer. So we provide the same answer for SMEs in Chelyabinsk regions. We are owners of all entrepreneurial projects in our region. We have more than 300 services for all those cases, real-life situations for entrepreneurs that he can encounter across his life or across his lifetime of his enterprise. Speaking about the impact, when all was sporadic before 2016, more than about 2,300 services have been provided, but right now the center has been operational for 2 years and a total of 67,000 services provided. And when accounts chamber come to us, they always ask, it's a good figure, but it's all about advancement, popularization and consulting. But I would say that as far as promotion is concerned, a friend of mine was recently talking to Sergei Galutsky, owner of Krasnodar Football Club, and he has the probably the best football academy in this country, and children train for free. And when Sergei was asked, why do you do that? Because it's only 1 or 5 max would be real players, so you invest so much money into that. But he would answer very simply, listen, those who won't be first-class players, they would be the best supporters of my team across their lifetime. And doing that promotion, we try to encompass so many people, individuals and entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs. We get ambassadors of SME, and Guzel in this case would have other figures in her survey. So about the attitude to entrepreneurship in this country. What are the impacts? We're at 2 years now, so we ran the calculation of all our counterparts, what happened to them over 2 years of our operation. You can see some facts on that slide, the number of jobs created, about 3,500 jobs, investment in main operating capital of those companies, supported by the Chelyabinsk region authorities. Their turnover increased by 1/3, as well as tax revenues have increased by 40%. And again, a total of 67,000 services have been provided, but they fit into 4 major sections. As far as financial support is concerned, it's pretty understood. All financial support is provided on a return basis. So we have supported 700 enterprises for more than 4 billion rubles. As Alexei has already mentioned, it was the first practice of its kind. It was considered the best. So then we have tried to wrap it up to make it a standard package to scale it across Russia. We get delegations every week or every month. We try to show to them how this center could work, and we share our experience. But it's not possible to rest on laurels, so we have to move on. And so we have defined certain vectors of development. Chelyabinsk region is a big one, so we have to go deeper into municipalities. And this year we are going to have 3 centers in 3 towns of Chelyabinsk region. A digital application is going to be improved, as well as a personal profile of entrepreneurs on our website. So we have to simplify those services, and owing to the national project, we're setting up a very interesting and stylish co-working to replace the business incubator. Another thing that we have been doing from 2016 is the customer service manager service, the customer service managers. So it's not about certain managers of agencies or organizations. There is a single client or customer support team, and the sales funnel is shaped by a single source, and by selling one product it's all about cross-selling, and thereby we get a synergy effect from provision of services before and after. But the most important thing in what we do is people, for whom we work and those who provide those things. It's all about people in the end. And every day, every next step is about working with people with whom we interact, for whom we work. We develop our team members. Every member of our team has a map of development. We do assessment on a regular basis, and we learn best practices from best companies. And Delovaya Sreda organization helps us a lot to take a look at the best world companies, and we're still benchmarking ourselves as it's still a way forward to be the best. These are my contact details, so if you want to work in Chelyabinsk region, please let me know. I'm available in all social networks, so you can talk to me, because Chelyabinsk region is the area of business. Thank you. Thank you, Artur. Once again, thanks to all our speakers. I believe that our discussion was pretty straightforward, and there were some areas of concern, growth areas as well. May I put in my 5 cents? I have mentioned that the promotion project is for existing entrepreneurs. It was not the case before, because the program is to attract new entrepreneurs from those groups that have been listed in the project before that. Anything changed? Milena Tahirovna, a question to you, because if we work with existing entrepreneurs, it's not about that effective. Answer: we have initially opted for 2 groups of people: existing entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs, because the tasks are to improve an image, whatever has to be addressed to the people, and to increase the status of that profession. And the second point, which you have to clearly understand, we're talking a lot about support measures, not only for private individuals, but for entrepreneurs, because they do need that. What are assessment criteria for the second group? Like, what is our KPI? The KPI is the number of entrepreneurs engaged in activities or popularization, both non-entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. But the popularization or promotion has its own weight for smaller and medium business development. We have a top level, we have a federal project level. There is an umbrella metric set in 2004, which is broken down by a few federal projects, and last year we provided this report to the accounts chamber, so it's pretty hard to calculate the share of every SME under that project, because an entrepreneur could get services from the federal project for improvement of entrepreneurial activities. He could be a beneficiary of changes that are taking place in the law. He could enjoy financial support. He could gain access to subsidized industrial area in industrial parks. He could get information under the promotion federal project. So, like one entrepreneur once received all those services, what is the impact on the SME? So it's hard to estimate that impact. So to break it down, how many interpreters do we want to cover? Well, there is a secondary metric, the number of people who want to start their own business. There is this metric, and awareness of people on that project. So the first task is to increase the number of entrepreneurs, like the birth rate, and the second point is to inform existing entrepreneurs about the state support and non-existent entrepreneurs to gain more. And there is task number 3, which is to increase the life cycle of entrepreneurs. The average life of SME now is 3 to 5 years. We want to increase it up to 6 years. And the first project, federal project, to improve the entrepreneurial environment or climate. It's not only technical or financial resources, it's an integrated task. We need to change the structure of SME business in this country. We want to increase the number of medium enterprises in that sector. We want to increase the life cycle for micro organizations to get into medium organizations. So there are many acceleration tools. We can talk many hours about that. All right. Thank you, dear speakers. There were interesting cases from entities of Russia. Moscow has done a big job. Chelyabinsk is moving on at a high speed. Good proposals from Opora, Russia. Sometimes it is not just turned into practical actions right from the start. However, it should happen. Thanks to the Accounts Chamber for a good feedback and your suggestions. Research think tanks who help us watch the picture and the trend that we're going on, and Synergy Corporation. Separate thanks to them, because Vadim is an entrepreneur and a partner who is doing 2 jobs at the same time. So thanks to you all. The session is closed, and let's watch the Chelyabinsk video on the screen.
всегда стремился быть полезным людям.
Иметь свободу выбора и независимость.
Получать новый практический опыт.
Решать сложные задачи.
Найти единомышленников и партнеров. Бежать по утрам на работу, которая в кайф.
Реализовывать свои идеи.